handling the role of director, computer center, as I have already informed you. And in this capacity, he is basically looking after all the IT related services of Aligarh Muslim University. So with these words, I would request Professor Khan to please continue the session, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for providing this opportunity to interact with the vibrant participants. And I'm sure next 1.5 hours is going to be more of an interactive session where we'll have some takeaways that we can start using from tomorrow, hopefully better than what we were doing earlier. Hopefully some or the other key takeaways will be there, because we'll try to be as practical as possible in terms of using the technology into teaching, learning, and research process. So I'd like to thank Professor Asim Zafar Saab, who himself is actually a very key stakeholder in our university, especially in the IT domain. He is our website committee convener and OSD development, and in so many initiatives, he's always there as one of the glues that binds the team together. So he is a very, very humble and very key stakeholder. So I thank him for giving me this opportunity. So let me turn off my video and start the slides. Any questions, I would request participants to put it in the chat box so that we can take up the questions in the end. Right. Just give me 1 minute to start sharing my slides. Are these slides visible? Can someone confirm, please?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay, thanks a lot. So actually, teaching, learning, and research, because learning goes with teaching. So teaching, learning go hand in hand, and research. This is the core activity in any academic institution. And we have from time to time, there are, different thrust areas, artificial intelligence being one of them in the recent times. We will focus on artificial intelligence, but we'll have to understand how we can use artificial intelligence to the advantage for improving teaching, learning, and research, and what are the pitfalls that we may get into if we don't use it in the right perspective. So these are some of the things that we'll be discussing. But before we get into the details of artificial intelligence, let's talk about certain basics involved in the teaching and learning that we often discuss as a context setting right in the beginning. For example, in teaching and learning, all the faculty members are, aware that, in teaching and learning, there had been a historical method of reading. So legacy, we used to read through books or through, class notes provided by the teachers, etc. That was the legacy methodology. And a cone of experience, which is based on some research on the education, that, if we enhance the reading component by also hearing, then the level of retention becomes higher in the students or in the learners. So that is why there is a lot of audio books or podcasts or, audio material. And in today's world, where people do a lot of commuting, a significant portion of the week in terms of hour goes into, in small cities, it may not be much visible, but in the metros and in the larger cities, typically everybody takes about half an hour to 1 hour in traveling to office. If it is we are traveling in the bus, we are doing nothing. So if we have audio books or podcast or something, we can listen to that, or we have some audio files of those lectures we can hear while we are commuting. So we can use the time effectively. So what we hear, we can retain a higher portion of. So that's how we can use the time effectively. With smartphones, the lectures or the reading material or the audio books or the content can be read. Broadcast can be read, etc., etc. Heard while traveling, while commuting. So that's one of the spheres where we can enhance the level of learning for our students. Likewise, if we also happen to see what we have read, what we have heard, if we can also have some kind of visualization, the level of retention tends to be much higher. So this is basically these percentages are based on some research that have been conducted, and it's very, very commonly known as cone of experience. So in the traditional word, we had Guruji. So Guruji's lecture was the only source. So if we miss the class, we are gone. We have no way but to wait for the class of Guruji next year. That was the case when we were students, something like 30 years back. that probably 30 years back, that was the only scenario. So we had a very special teacher of a particular subject, and we had no option but to attend his classes. That's the only way. But scenario is changing a lot in the present time. That's not the case anymore. So if we combine what we read, what we hear, and what we see, if we combine hearing and seeing both, then the retention gets much faster. So that is the transformation which is happening in the present time in the teaching and learning process, where there is lots of initiatives being taken by government, like MOOCs, like so many online classes, flip learning. So what they are doing is basically they are using these attributes to enhance the level of learning and to blend it with the traditional methodology of learning of chalk and talk methodology, what was happening earlier. So in the present time, because of the changes, there are enhancements happening. So higher levels of retentions can be achieved through the active involvement of learning. These basically lessons learned are also being incorporated into the AI powered tools also, which we are using in the present time for enhancing or adapting the learning plan for our students, because the students are of different categories, different types. So we can have a personalized learning experience by using these senses of the students. So we had teaching aids. This is not new. Only thing is, in the present time, AI tools are also becoming one of the teaching aids. So teaching aids are basically a historical concepts. It is not new. Only the type of tool keeps on changing from time to time. So it is basically meant to reinforce what teachers are saying and ensure that the teacher's point is understood well. So that's how the teaching aid help signal what is important and what is essential in any particular class or in any environment. And they enable students to visualize or experience something that is otherwise very difficult to visualize or experience. For example, if we have a class where the concept of galaxy is to be introduced by the teacher, so galaxy is a three-dimensional concept. If a teacher has to draw a diagram on a whiteboard or on a blackboard, it will take several minutes to draw a diagram that will be actually a two-dimensional diagram, and then teacher will try his or her best to explain. Still the concept will be partially or vaguely understood for the first time. But if, on the other hand, in today's multimedia environment, if a small YouTube video of galaxy containing the three-dimensional images, containing moving objects, containing the audio also explaining those concepts is played for 5 minutes, the concept will be crystal clear. So that's one of the teaching aids which is available today, that we can use the multimedia senses of the students to engage the students' other senses also in the learning process. So the teaching aid in the present time is much more powerful than the teaching aid that were there 20-30 years back, probably the OSP projector. Because I remember, and I'm sure Professor Asim Zafar Saab or other faculty members who had seen our teachers, because our teachers used to have to present anything, they had no way but to present through an OSP projector. There will be a transparency, and there was yellow color projector on which they will keep, and that was the only best possible teaching aid available. But today plenty of options are available, and so much so that with so many options, the students have become lethargic because they think that material is available, we can see anytime. Probably at the earlier time, when we were not having the luxury of so many aids and tools, we were more alert than what we are today. So teaching aids in particular used to facilitate different styles of learning, and in the present case, there are a lot of changes happening, a lot of paradigm shifts are happening, and those paradigm shifts require us to revise curriculum, to blend the curriculum with what is already got available in the resources, in the form of various resources being offered, because there is one very, very harsh reality, that there is a shortage of good teachers. Shortage of good teachers is a global problem, not only in India but worldwide, not only in a particular state or in a particular university. And we all remember right from our student life that we remember certain good teacher, and one particular teacher was very good, or a favorite teacher, etc., etc. So what has happened in the present time, the by use of technology, the knowledge of that particular teacher is being captured for the rest of the life. Even after his retirement, people can get benefited from his or her experience or lectures or sessions by way of converting those lectures into useful, meaningful national digital resources. And a repository of those is being maintained on various platforms like, SWAM and so many others, MOOCs, etc., etc. So the transformation that is happening in the present age is that there were three models in the teaching learning. There was a traditional model where teacher's role was the most active role. Focus was only on teachers, and the role of learners was passive. And the technology at that point in time was chalk and talk. Probably when we did I remember in our high school and inter, that was the technology available, chalk and talk. So our teacher will come and he will talk, and the only option is learn that. But then came the next model, which is called information model, where the role of teachers, the focus basically is on the learners, not on the teachers. And the role of learners become active. So they need a personal computer, which means they can use the material available on their personal computer to replay the lecture videos or some material, and they can still learn. Even if the class is missed out, they can still get benefit. And third, the next model was knowledge model, where there is a group. So the focus is not on the learners, but on the adaptive group of learners. And we require PC plus network, which means the connectivity to the national resources or the international digital resources, etc., etc. Now, we all know in any class there are good students, there are poor students, and there are average students. By and large, the larger chunk of students are the average. Then there are certain smaller portions which are above average, and a smaller portion which is much below average or below average. So this is the typical distribution. Learning needs of all these, if I divide the class into three groups, their learning needs are different. If we don't do adaptive methodology, if I want to help weaker student and I announce those weak students are requested to join for a special class, for all we know, the sincere students will be sitting and those we are targeting will be missing from the class. So this doesn't work actually. So we have to have an adaptive methodology tailored to the needs of the individual group of students, and that is where these technology-enabled tools helps us, though tailored methods. So there are tools and techniques and solutions available using technology, which helps us in dynamic learning, and that is where we have AI, role of AI. So if we can use those integrated with AI-based tools, then we can achieve this in a much more efficient way. But there are some word of caution that we will also discuss, that blindly trusting on AI-generated content without fact checks, etc., might lead into problems. So there are some changes that is happening in the role of teacher also. So earlier, teacher used to be transmitter of knowledge. Teacher was expected to answer each and every question, and he was supposed to know everything all the time. That's no longer valid today. So instead of transmitter of knowledge, he is a guide and facilitator of the knowledge. So there are resources, knowledge resources available across the globe. We can connect to the right resources and get knowledge and facilitate to our student. So teacher used to be controller of learning. Instead of that, he is a creator of learning environment. So for example, just to share a relevant examples in support to what I'm saying, in our AMU website, you will find amu.ac.in. If you go there, you will find a ticker message which is telling 31 courses which have been recorded by our AMU, and unfortunately, Professor Asim Zafar Sahab is the convener of that initiative. He's a SWAM coordinator of our university, so he had taken the pain to coordinate and manage those and get those contents created. So he had literally showcased an example of creator of a learning environment. So he created an environment where the lectures were recorded and such material. So you can see those courses being offered on the SWAM platform. So go to amu.ac.in, right on the index page, you will find a ticker message that is detailing those 31 courses or something like that. I don't remember the exact numbers, but around 30 or odd. And he has created, so that is the role which is happening, change of role in the present scenario of 21st century with AI and with the latest technology driven environment. So teacher is not supposed to be always expert. It used to be the case historically in the legacy method, but no longer anymore. So he is a collaborator and co-learner, because every teacher is a learner. A student also is continuing to learn. And instead of learning to use ICT, it is using ICT to enhance the learning. So for example, if we have used ICT to refer to particular national resource or particular, activity online, so we can use ICT to enhance our learning, right? So that's the role of teachers, which is happening. Likewise, the curriculum is also changing. It used to be memorizing facts earlier on, but no longer anymore. I mean, several years back, probably the questions used to be like, today, today in the technology-driven world with so much of information available, asking memory-based facts is no longer at all valid. For example, something like 20 years, 30 years back, a question could have been where Gandhiji was born, what is the name of the city, what is his mother's father's name, etc., etc. in a history example. But if you ask that, anybody can Google and find this information. So this is no longer actually, so curriculum needs to be refined and revised. Probably it should be inquiry-based. It should be a question which will force thinking in the students. Probably in today's scenario, the question could be, what would be Gandhiji doing if he was alive today in the current political scenario? What he would have been doing? So here, if you type it in Google, Google will say, sorry, answer not found, data not found. Because there is not, here, there is actually an authentic learning exercises are given, that scenario-based learning. So accordingly, the curriculum needs to be refined and redesigned. So that we can use all the senses of the students to enable and trigger the learning, not based on memory, because understand, in this time we are living in the present context, what our teachers are teaching, when our teachers were students, they would have never read about it, they have never thought about it. For example, take the case of a law. In any law college or in a law university, typically a student will graduate, he will do LLB, LLM, etc., and go and register in some court with some senior advocate, and then only he or she will get exposed to court cases. But that is not true anymore. Right now, most of the courts are doing live streaming of the proceedings of the court. So a law student passing out now has much more opportunity to learn and understand than it used to be something like 10, 20 years back, because so much of information overload, so much of resources available. So in today's time, the home assignments or the activities or assessment should be modified to include these as the assignment. For example, a law faculty member can give an assignment, assign the individual hearings as a home assignment, that you please go and watch the video, try to prepare your 2-page report and submit what would have been your argument if you were defending that as a practitioner or as a whatever. So things are changing a lot. So we really can't afford to have the same curriculum that we were having 20 years back or earlier. So there has to be a need for modifying the curriculum. So that is why most of the institutions have a lot of mandate for doing amendment in the curriculum by taking care of the present circumstances and present changes which is happening in the current technology driven environment. So media applications are changing. Instead of analog resources, it is going to be digital resources. In a legacy scenario, a student will go to his or her library and find the resources, but that's not anymore. We can, sitting here in one institute, we can access all the library resources, digital resources. So there are national digital library available. So sitting in AMU, one can refer all the other universities' library by going to the National Digital Library, and so on. So a lot of changes are happening. Accordingly, the methodology, the content, the training of the teachers and trainers, all of that. So there's lots and lots of changes that are happening, and there are plenty of national digital resources. We'll just have a look at some of them. So these are all some of the resources which we can refer and find out how we can use those resources into our curriculum appropriately so that it can benefit our students. So continuing that, on those, how we can also use the artificial intelligence in enriching the teaching learning experience for our students. So here are some of the national digital resources that I would say, in your free time, please explore them. You will find these digital resources can help us to extend the level of learning of our students and make our content much more richer, and we can use these for making our students much better prepared to take up the challenge of the real world after they pass out from our institutions. So coming back to the artificial intelligence, because that's the primary focus of discussion in the today's session. So there are certain functions that the artificial intelligence can help us perform in education. So let's look at how we can. So we do have administration. So as a part of the administration of the classroom and as a part of administration of the courses, we have to do certain tasks that consumes lots and lots of efforts. For example, grading exams and providing feedback to the students is something that takes a lot of our time as teacher. So if we use artificial intelligence in the right mix, we can reduce or we can make it more efficient, which means grading of exams can become much faster. Providing individual personalized feedbacks can be done much faster as compared to doing it manually. So that is where we can use artificial intelligence for grading of exams and providing feedbacks faster than we used to do otherwise. It also helps us, we can get help of building personalized learning plans on the basis of the learning styles and preference of the students, because we all know every student has got certain uniqueness. In fact, every human being has got some personality traits. So students' preferences and styles vary in the class. We can in what I was talking few minutes back, that we can tailor the students into 3 categories or classify them as above average, below average, and the average. Now I'm going to one more step next and say each student is different. So there has to be some personalized learning plan, but that is not possible to do it without some technology or some tool. So if we appropriately use artificial intelligence into our instruction delivery and content delivery methodology, we can help achieve personalization even to an individual student level also. So that is the AI offers the potential to help build personalized learning plans based on the learning styles and the preferences of the individual students. And it also assists us the instructions with the decision support systems and data driven works, because after a few from each session, from each instance of interaction, some data is getting generated, so there is a learning going on. So accordingly the algorithm can suggest that instructor with what kind of exercises or what kind of assignment can be given to this particular type of a student or this particular group of a student. So that is where we have, so in the instruction administration of the course, we have got a potential for AI. So what we can do is we can work with the students directly and timely, giving the feedback. So all that is potentially possible if we use the AI properly. Now, as far as the instruction is concerned, we can create the personalized learning plan for each student if we use the proper AI powered tools. We can analyze the syllabus and course material and propose customized content. Suppose we have got data of past few years, and if we analyze that through AI based tools, we can find out what are the areas which we can trim or we can add based on that analysis of the actual data. Of suppose if we have 5 units of the syllabus and the exams are we are giving questions in the assignments. So after a few semesters, when we have the data, that analysis can be done to find out which particular topics are being offered. Suppose we have an optional question, we offer some choice based questions. So certain questions not being attempted by any student, we can do further analysis as to why these students are missing this question. Is it worth keeping it in the syllabus, or is it needed to be dropped and customized to some content which is more relevant? So all that is possible. So we can do that once we have the AI powered tools, and we have data for few semesters where we can do the analysis. Now, it also allow the instruction beyond the classroom, supporting the collaboration, which means we have, let's say we have a particular unit or particular topic going in the discussion in the classroom. We can have some platform where the students can continue the interaction, and based on the collaboration among the students or among the groups of learners, we can have some more recommendation as to what should be the kind of time distributed for this particular topic based on the interest of the student, based on the participation, etc., etc. So all of that is possible, and we can anticipate the performance outcomes and potential dropout also if we use the AI tools appropriately. So we can understand, it's like, in a manual situation, a teacher often gets to know his students and would say that this particular student is going to get selected, this particular student, from what I can see his behavior or his engagement, he is going to not be able to clear this particular exam. So this is based on the assessment teacher is doing based on his experience. Similarly, we can, if we use AI tools, then based on the data collected, those tools can actually perform analysis and predict those outcomes and the performance outcomes. So that work can be done on a much larger scale through AI tools that we are doing it manually. But once the group is larger, doing it manually will not be possible because personalized attention paying may not be feasible in a totally manual scenario. So it also helps us in the learning. It predicts the career path for each student basis the study data. So if a student is studying following, suppose we have an LMS that is integrated with the AI tools, and based on what time the student is spending in the LMS, some prediction can be made, and we can recommend that, okay, so here is the career path. Suppose we are offering some open electives and departmental electives. So basis the data of past few students opting for few groups of, a prediction can be made that if you are doing this particular career path, this is the electives that you should choose, and this is the way you can make progression. So it can help customize the university course selections, departmental electives, open elective, etc., etc. All of that is feasible through use of artificial intelligence for the purpose of automating and enhancing the electives offering and electives administration in the university. So detecting and learning the state and apply intelligent adapting intervention to the student. Suppose a student has not cleared the concept of a particular topic and he's moving forward, then some smart intervention can be made, which means recommendations can be made to the student that you are proceeding to the next topic without clearing this particular quiz or assessment. You're going to get into problems. So focus more time, spend your weekend and try to finish off, learn this particular concept and clear this particular quiz. Otherwise, it is going to. So those kind of adaptive intervention is also possible if we use the AI tools for the enhancing the learning of our students. So uncover the learning shortcomings of the students and address them early in the learning life cycle is possible. If we have, AI powered tools integrated into LMS platform that we are using for, repositing the learning activities of the students or the group of learners. Now, coming to the research. So that is as far as the teaching learning is concerned. Coming back to the use cases of artificial intelligence in research works. So before we get into the use of artificial intelligence in the research work, let me spend a couple of minutes and get back to the chat room. So I'll stop sharing the slide and I will again come back to the same slide again. But let me first, for a few minutes, ask a couple of questions related to the research. So from all the participants. So kindly help me understand, all the participants, what are the problems that we face today in the research as research supervisor, or what are the pain points that we see, or the areas of improvement or suggestions that you might have. So we'll see how AI is going to help us solve those problems, if at all it can solve or reduce or minimize those problems. So let me try to get some first-hand inputs from the participants. Yes, tell me. Am I audible? Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are audible.
Cool. So please tell me, because I want to spend 2-3 minutes to capture inputs or collect inputs from the participants in terms of what are, because see, any tool is a solution enabler. Tool is not a solution provider. So there is a difference between enabler and provider. Let me give an example. Calculator, simple example, calculator as a tool, right? So calculator can help us do calculations faster, isn't it? Am I correct? But calculator cannot dictate us what to calculate and how to calculate, right? I mean, what to calculate. Calculator can help us if I know as a user of calculator what I want to calculate. Calculator will not decide what to calculate. The user of the calculator will decide what to calculate. Am I clear? So conceptually, one thing is very, very clear, that tools should be solution enablers. They will not dictate the solution that this is the only way you can calculate. So they will not alter the mathematical concepts. They will help us do calculations much faster, provided we know what to calculate, right? So fine. So coming back to that, let's focus on the core research before we get into the tools. AI is one of them. We can use AI to do better research. And what are the possible errors if we use AI blindly without focusing on the basics of research? So that also should be understood, the pitfalls of AI, using AI in research. That we'll discuss that at length. So help me understand, what are the problems that we face as research supervisors? Okay, so there is a question based on a topic: is there any AI to get research articles with correct references? Absolutely, we can do that. We'll come back to that. I'm talking for a few minutes. Forget about any tool. Let's get back to the basics of research. So we have a research student who took admission. Let's say a PhD student who got admission into the university for the first day. He gets the admission in the institution, completes his or her admission formalities, walks into the department and says, "Sir, I am your new student. I've just joined." He's going to be there for next 3, 4, 5 years, whatever be the period of the PhD, right? So what he or she should be doing and how these tools can help him or her do things better between him and his supervisor, or her and her supervisor, whatever. So what are the basics? I want to talk about it. What should be the student doing in the first week, first month, first year?
Sir, at least he should be familiarized for what he is going to do. So he must know the innovation or the things that is to be used in the research process. Either
Okay.
he will
I think he should
study.
do a review of literature.
Literature review, sir.
Okay, fine. So that is basically we have a research student who has just joined the university, but he may know, he may not know. Right? He'll say, "I have just joined here. Kindly guide me." So there are two ways actually. He may be knowing the broader area that he wants to do the research in this. For example, I want to do research in medical science, or I want to do research in library sciences, or I want to do research in computer science. He may be knowing the high level area. He may not know the thrust area. He may not know, and for all you know, he may not even have the supervisor assigned right on day one. So there are two kinds of students. One would be knowing exactly this is my interest, this is my area. There will be some formalities of the university or the institution, coursework, etc., right? And there are some committees where the proposals are presented and then the student will be accepting. Now, help me understand. There will be, and somebody was mentioning, there will be a literature review phase where the student will be doing some literature review, some trying to find out what is the latest research, etc. So there are basically two types of search. Now it evolves to, he will because in any university or the institution there will be different faculty members who can act as research supervisor, and they will have their own thrust areas, their own areas of expertise, right? So how do we make sure that the student is doing research in the area that is not already done by somebody else, because after 1 year or 2 years, when the students is trying to submit his progress and in the meeting somebody says this is already done, why you have wasted your time here? So that will be, disheartening, right? So how can we make sure that these tools, including AI powered tools, can help the student do better literature review, right? How they can help a student in doing more meaningful writing. Writing directly and copying from AI tools is actually a huge blunder that many people do. That shouldn't be done. We will talk about that when we get back to the slides. So we have, as someone mentioned also, we have problem of plagiarism, right? Somebody mentioned in the chat box. We have lack of innovative ideas. Okay, we have some resource crunch, this limitation, that limitation. Fine, we are living in a world full of constraints. We have to manage those constraints and see how we can manage with all these constraints. So coming back to the problem, so basically in how much time the topic gets finalized, topic of the research gets finalized in how much time? In your own institutions, you can share your own experience.
So within 3 months.
Okay. And how the topic should be finalized? Somebody suggests, somebody walks in the corridor and say you can do research in this particular topic, and the student says, yeah, it looks good, and starts doing research.
Yes, sir. That happens. Usually seniors give advice, but one should refer to the review of literature and the work in that field. That happens.
Good. Anybody else? Any other way of choosing the topic and the area? What are the resources that one must look into while doing the literature review?
Recent publications.
Okay. So for publications, should I go to Google and search?
Google Scholar and something like that.
So we go to Eric, we go to ResearchGate, then Academia, Emerald Insight, these type of web
So basically,
things we refer to usually.
Google is not a very good source for searching for keywords and etc. because publishing material is very, very easy, on the website. We must search the index databases of the quality publications. So we have journals, we have the databases which are indexing good journals related to the topic and subject. So any idea of which journals?
Scopus Index, Web of
We have the Scopus Index, we have Web of Sciences, we have so many others, right? And the present trend is basically making the access open. So we have directory of open access journals also, right? You may be aware.
Yes, sir.
So we may go there, we may do search, and we may find articles and then download and store. So what happens typically when a student starts, he will have first paper on maybe in the week 1, first paper, second paper, third paper. With the passage of time, the number of paper that a student is handling will keep on increasing, right? So by the time he is in a good position to submit his or her PhD after a few years, he would have already handled 200 papers, 250 papers, something like that. So how does one keep these papers? In a hard copy bound, in a file? What are the ways that you generally recommend, and what are the issues we find? See, suppose by third year, fourth year, the students have already read 200 papers. Those papers he would have annotated using, a yellow color highlighter and marked, etc., etc. So, is there a way we can do it in a much better way than, just handling the paper in a physical mode and the file? Is there any tools and techniques and technology that can make the life much easier, much professional, and make it more efficient? Anybody aware of any such tools? How do we handle it? Okay, so let's get back to the slide.
Google Drive.
Google Drive is one of them, but Google Drive is just placing there. If I want to do searching, etc., Google Drive may not help. There are lots and lots of tools They are called, let me put it in the chat box. They are referred to as reference manager tools. Now, these reference manager tools would basically help us. These reference manager tools will help us to keep all the papers there, and we can generate references very, very easily. Because when we are writing paper, we will have to submit the references and bibliography in a particular format recommended by the journal in terms of the guide for authors to this particular journal, etc. So there's lots and lots of work that can be automated through use of these reference manager tools. So I want to ask the participants if you know any reference manager tools. Otherwise, I will name few, but I wanted to know if you have used or if you are aware of any such reference manager tools.
Sir, Mendeley. I have used Mendeley.
Zotero.
Okay. So,
Sir, I have been
Zotero.
using Mendeley and Zotero. Mendeley and Zotero. Which one is better? I'm not sure about it, but I have been aware of Zotero and Mendeley.
let me tell, all these tools are excellent. The one that you are comfortable with is good. And you should be aware that if you are using one tool and if you want to move to other tool, there is a way of importing and exporting. So Zotero is good. EndNote is, there are some paid tools, there are some free tools. Mendeley is free up to certain 2 GB or some space. Likewise, Zotero is there. EndNote is actually a paid tool. So paid tool means you have got some support subscription, some better features, because they are charging you money, so they'll offer you some additional. So understand that these tools, if we have, that makes the hard work or tedious work much better, which means we can focus more productive time in the actual research than managing the references, etc., etc. So there are many, many tools available. And so is the case with AI tools. So there are some of the tools are artificial intelligence powered, because today the focus is on AI. So a lot of software companies are building AI powered tools and selling them as a cloud service or a software as a service, etc., etc. Oh, very nice question. How to download paid journals in the free of cost? All that I can think is contact the author. Tell him, sir, I want you to give me your paper. That's the only way. Ask the author to give you a copy of his paper. That's one legitimate way. Author can always give you his paper if he agrees to your request and he is. Another is, if you go, let me type the URL, poaj.org. This is basically directory of open access journal. So there are lots and lots of journals which are indexed in the open access journal. So in the open access journal, you can find these papers free of cost. Now the trend is changing. Earlier, the people were the good journals were not charging anything. Now things have changed. What journals are doing is, they are saying, we will charge a publication fee and make it free for the user so that we can promote the usage. Because of the cost associated, many people were not able to use. So what they have done is they have changed their style. Something like 10, 20, 15 years back, paid journals were looked at as with suspicion that it's a paid journal, which means there's some problem with the quality. But that scenario is changing, because a lot of good journals have started charging publication fee, saying that we have made our journal free and open access. That's why we are charging to maintain the expenses, etc., etc. So that's another way. Things, there are open access journals. If it is indexed in open access journal, you can find very good articles there, right? And another is go to Google Scholar and see, and then contact the author and write to him or her. Say that I want a copy of your such and such article, if you can give me. And author can always give you free of cost if he agrees to the request. And I have found most of the authors do agree. So let me just share my slides once again and get back to the slides. Are the slides visible now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. So let's look at some of the use cases of artificial intelligence in the research works, right? So one of the phases in the research is the literature review. Very, very important phase, probably early in the life of the PhD student. Initial 1 year or so would be in thoroughly the literature review phase, and we can always use AI for literature review. AI powered research tools for reading, annotating, and note taking can make the process of acquiring knowledge considerably more efficient. That's the advantage of using AI powered tools for literature review. Such tools can provide the users with briefs and excerpts from the literature source with the most relevant information highlighted and help one decide whether the article is worth reading or not. Please note that AI based tool or any such tool will, based on certain algorithm, will bring a lot of information and provide you a brief abstract. So we have to apply our wisdom to identify whether it is making sense for us or not before we decide to delve further into the details of the particular, right? So this can help us, the user, quickly locate the relevant information in the research articles, determine which paragraphs to read in depth, and then compile notes on the subject, right? So we'll have to keep the sources ready because we'll have to cite our sources. Otherwise, it will lead to some other issues like flag, etc. So to use such an AI-powered tool most effectively for research, the user should very, very carefully and critically assess the output without accepting it as a truth. This is very, very important. Let me just give me 1 minute. One of the problems is whenever the new paradigm change happens, people start blindly trusting that particular tool. So anything that is generated by an AI powered tool should not be accepted as a truth, which means we need to do the fact finding, whether it is worth reading, whether it is reliable, worth citing, etc., etc. So while it is good to use AI tools, but blindly trusting and taking everything as truth should not happen, because research requires critical thinking. We must apply critical thinking. So we must critically assess the output and should not accept it as truth until we are satisfied with our own due diligence, and then go and read the original text instead of simply relying on the AI generated summary. This is one pitfall. Many people will say, okay, so this AI tool has done, so I need not do my hard work. This is fine. This is pakka and final. No, we must, if AI has generated some summary, we must go and double check the original article, which is, it must be referring to some article published by some journal in some particular. So we must cross check with the original article whether this is true or not, and whether it is cited, whether it is of the right quality or not. All of those hard work we'll have to do it. So while we can use AI to generate summaries and give appropriate filters, but the onus of doing the verification is still less with the researchers. This is one very, very important point in using AI for the purpose of literature review. Then the next part is basically related to the academic writing. Here also there is a lot of temptation to use AI tools for doing, writing through. So people will say this is the paper that has, or the paragraph that has been written by an AI tool. So let me straight away put it in for my publication. So while distilling complex information from numerous sources and explaining it along with original ideas is an important aspect for any good academic writing. Now, so is the importance of effective note taking. So what, so that we can keep track of the source of information and help avoid what is called plagiarism. And this is very, very critical. Now, one of the disadvantages is that people often tend to take the information of AI generated tool and start believing it blindly and start putting it in the paper and say this is, since AI has generated, so I don't have to do my hard work. This is one of the mistakes that many people make. So AI powered tools can help us to take notes and organize relevant articles to be included. But it also helps researchers to write it effectively. Some tools also help the researchers paraphrase the sentences. Just let me. So what is happening is people will find and then do some paraphrasing and then think that it is their own work. This is basically a problem. So while using those tools for paraphrasing may be supported, but it is particularly important for researchers, especially from the non-English speaking countries. That's okay for language support, etc. But we have to understand the basics, and because AI tools are not taking care of the ethics sides of the things. So just because it has been generated by AI does not mean that it is ethical or moral. So the making sure that the ethical aspects of the research are taken care. To make the most effective use of AI powered tools for academic writing, researchers must not solely rely on the AI for note taking or writing. Researcher can practice more ethical by writing, reformulating the paraphrased content from AI rather than copying pasting, which means they can generate some summaries, but then doing the verification from the original sources, doing the paraphrasing yourself, and also following the norms for giving the credit to the authors, etc., has got to be done by the researcher or at the institution level. So this is one word of caution in using AI, because AI tools will be doing things much faster. So in couple of hours, one may write some summaries and copy paste and say, I have got my paper ready. But this may get into problem, because if he has not done his hard work of doing the fact checks and also giving the credits to those sources from where the AI has generated. So this is some word of caution. Now what that means, that's why I've included a slide called pitfalls of using AI in the academic research. Now let's talk about the negative aspects or the potential negative aspects. AI has its flaws and cannot replace the human researchers. In fact, the word itself, artificial, means it is not real. So artificial intelligence can do things faster, but it can never replace human researchers. So that's one thing very, very clear. It should be very clear in our mind. As an example, this is for example is generative AI inventing academic references instead of using the real publications. Now, AI-powered tools should be used to support academic researchers and not replace critical thinking abilities. Because what is happening, let me give you an example that I was talking about in the beginning of my presentation. When we were students, right now I'm handling computer center of the university. And when I was a student in this university back from 86 to 90, when we were doing engineering, at that point in time, we had a mainframe computer in computer center. That was the era of mainframe. So for the entire university, there was a central computing facility. People will be going and booking the workstation or a slot or a terminal for 1 hour. And probably you will get 1 week advance booking. And if your turn is over, then you can book again and get one. So in 1 week, hardly 1 hour you can be allotted, because it is for the entire university and so many users. So one of the advantages we had was we were writing the program in the notebook, reading it 10 times, because I have only 1 hour. If I get a compilation error and I'm not able to troubleshoot my program in 1 hour, I'll have to wait for another 1 week, which means the scarcity of resources and the hard work had made students like me or my class fellows or batchmates much more cautious and much more alert, because I will get only 1 hour this week. Any chance errors next week only. But if it is freely available, like today, computing power is available freely to all the students. People are playing games on laptops. so much of computing facilities available in the handheld devices, that has made people careless. They think that it is available, I can do it anytime, and things get procrastinated. This is one of the disadvantages. So coming back to the last point on the slide, AI-powered tools should be used to support academic researchers and not to replace critical thinking abilities, which means the basics of research requires critical thinking, analyzing facts, doing analysis. All of that should not be compromised, because AI-powered tools are suggesting something. It should not be blindly taken as truth and used it. No, we must do our. So that's the point I'm trying to emphasize, that it should help us do certain things that will that should not replace critical thinking abilities. Instead, it should help us to do more efficient, right? So AI assisted tools are more effective when they are used by the researchers for what? To optimize the time frame and resources as they do research, and not write their papers. Writing papers, writing thesis or grant application or funding application should be done not through AI. It should be done by the human being. And in order to do some data checks, fact checks, for generating some summaries that for which can be cross verified, those are the things that should be done by through AI. Which, if you are writing a research application, grant application through AI, the approving agency can quickly find out, because everybody will be doing that through AI, and then it can very easily get rejected. So there are things. Thesis should not be written through AI. It should be written by the applicant. It is like somebody learning mathematics through calculator. Learning mathematics should happen on pen and paper. Then once one knows the basics of mathematics, then to make the job easier, one can use calculator. So this is what I'm trying to say, just giving a similarity. So there are things where AI should not be used. There are pitfalls in using AI for academic research if we don't use it properly. So simply copying and pasting AI generated text can result into plagiarism. That is one of the problems that we talked about, and some of the participants. So again, I will take a couple of minutes here to talk about my slide. I'll again come back to the point where we are leaving. Just a minute. Just give me 1 minute. Okay. Now I have a question for all the participants. What is plagiarism? So if it is possible for you to turn on the camera for a few minutes, because I want a face-to-face discussion on this particular topic, because I have certain questions for you. So if it is possible, please turn on your camera. Switch on the camera if possible. As many participants as possible. Yes, Dr. Kalpana, please go ahead. Dr. Kalpana has raised hand, so please go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. What is plagiarism? Try to switch on the camera if possible. Just for a few minutes. If participants are, if I'm audible, kindly switch on the camera. As many participants as possible, kindly switch on your camera. Just for a few minutes. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Kindly switch on the camera. I have some questions. So because interaction, I want to also see your face if possible. If your machine has a camera, please switch on. Now I have a question. This question is not, I'm putting a disclaimer. This is my personal view, so not to be quoted. I'm just asking one question to help me understand. Often I ask this question to many groups of students. What is plagiarism? I mean, in simple terms, there are official definitions. If you go to Google or if you go to some book, you can find. I'm not asking a textbook definition. I am asking a common understanding. What is plagiarism?
Plagiarism is
सर किसी और के काम को कॉपी करके अपना नाम दे देना कि मैंने किया है.
Oh, sorry. Very good.
Copying
So, again-
someone else's data without any reference, sir.
Good, good, very good, very good. So by and large, everybody has got an understanding. Claiming the work of others as your own work is a
Without-
source of plagiarism, right?
Yes.
Claiming the work of others as my own work is a plagiarism. Now, my question starts. And this is a personal question, not to be attributed to to any institution. Is our system promoting plagiarism or discouraging plagiarism? System of
To some
education.
extent, we can, to some extent, plagiarism is allowed in papers.
No, I'm saying is, have you seen the schools? Children in the evening, they are crying that tomorrow I have to submit a project in their school. Mother, please do my project. Father, please do my project. Brother, please do my project. And the mother, helpless father, mother, brother, all are preparing that project, putting a sticker in the name of the child. And when they are going to the school, and there is another student who is doing the project himself. Obviously, that school student cannot do a very, cosmetic project. He can do good work, but it will not be very cosmetic. So the student which is doing a original work and bringing it to the school, what does the teacher do? Please tell me. क्या होता है उसके साथ? Teacher encourages the work which is original, or teachers encourages the work which is more presentable? Tell me.
More
More
presentable.
presentable.
Original one is encouraged, sir.
And if we ask our, younger brother or our children, do it yourself. You should do original work. He will say, "Kal main school nahi jaunga. I will not go to school because teacher will scold me." Right? So, intrinsically in the mind of the student, the message is going: presentability and cosmetic is good. Plagiarism is a Hippocratic word. This is the message we are giving in our schools, right from KG to PG. This is what we are building. And in PhD, we take a U-turn and say what? So this is now why I have posed this question to you is not to criticize the system, but to give you a message. Tomorrow, if you are in a committee, tomorrow you are some policy making committee, please take up the issue for reforms and see to it in terms of recommending that wherever decision has to be taken at the grassroots level to promote the original work, try to support the original work so that our system gets reformed and we start supporting the original work, which means any student who has done the original work, even if it is not very presentable, we must encourage. And if somebody has done a very cosmetic work, and if we learn that it is not done by him or her, it is done by somebody else, we must discourage. That's how we can improve the original work. And that when that concept is grilled right from the childhood, then when it gets to higher education, we'll hopefully be able to resolve the problem. So give me 1 minute. Let me again get back to the slide. Just give me 1 minute, please. Are the slides visible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let me take up the.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now, what are the pitfalls of using AI in academic research? Which means if we are not careful, we may get into wrong direction. So we must understand the what should we do, what we should be careful when we are using AI in academic research. See, please understand that advancing science requires original, creative, and critical thinking by the people in that particular field. Right? Now, AI is based on input and existing research knowledge. Now, AI tools may cause researchers to lose their creativity and originality, which means while we should use AI tools, we should be careful of the potential that we should not lose our creativity and originality. So this is something we should be careful when we are doing, the using AI tools. Now, how can we use I mean, this slide that I have just concluded should not discourage you from using AI. I'm not discouraging use of AI, but I want to use it with caution. Use it for those things where we should be more efficient without losing our critical thinking and creativity. Now, in what way, the logical question arises, in what way you can use the AI effectively as researchers. So there are some do's and don'ts that I've tried to put into a slide. Probably this might be a good takeaway. So AI tools should be used for managing and citing the references. We have talked about an example of Mendeley. There are other tools also. There are so many AI powered tools. Naming those tools, etc., we can always look into. After, if the time permits, we will look at some of the URLs and see. And then there are new tools coming every day. So I am not here to suggest you this particular tool or that particular tool. I'm here to create the thought process of tools are being, arriving every day. What we should use tool for, what we should not use tool for, and what should be the care that we must take while using these tools. We'll also look at some of the available tools as well. So what we must do is we must fact check the content generated by the AI powered tools. We must not believe blindly what AI tools are saying. Is that clear? And these AI tools must be used to edit or structure the original content according to the submission requirements, which means we must have the original content. Then we can have the AI tools to reformat them efficiently and in a fast method, to meet the particular journal's requirement or to meet a particular formatting requirement, etc., etc. We should not let the content be dictated by the tool, but we should have the content that can be reformatted or reorganized based on the requirements of a particular publishing agency. Now, what we should not do is we should not use AI to replace critical thinking needed to carry out the research, right? So, which means critical thinking must be applied always, irrespective of whether the content is generated by AI or not. So, critical thinking should not be replaced with the AI. We should never accept the content generated by AI tools as the truth without fact checking, without the due diligence of fact checking. We must not rely on AI tools to write academic articles, thesis, or proposals for the funding agencies or grant application or whatever you call it. We must not use AI tools for writing. We must write our own. Then we can, for organizing, we can use the tool, reorganizing or etc. we can. But the original content must be written by us. Is that clear? Any questions in this particular slide? Okay, so
No,
yeah, go ahead.
no any question, sir.
Okay, so if you have any questions, put it in the chat box. We'll try to take it up towards the end. Okay. Now, what are some of the good practices that researchers have often used AI for while doing research? So gather relevant, clean, and suitable data for analysis by AI tools, right? So data should not be generated by the tool, but we must do our own hard work for the gathering of the data, sanitizing of the data, making sure we have clean and suitable data, and then we can use the AI tools for analysis of that data. We must identify and choose appropriate AI tools that best suit the problem for analyzing, right? And we must ensure that the algorithms are trained, tested, and validated. That's how many researchers have recommended that this is a good practice while we are using AI for research. So we all know in any research, there is often, there are what kind of research? There are academic research. There are also industry research or market research, which are generally paid. Most of the paid research have some bias to promote the product of a particular company, isn't it? For example, if you have some health research being promoted by pharmaceutical company A, they will do some research. That research will be paid research. At the end of the research, the outcome will be, if you have this problem, you buy this particular medicine. So this, you will reduce the problem. So that there is actually a paid research has got a human bias, right? Because the funding agency which is paying for that research would like the results to be supportive to its business cause. Now, that is not the case in academic research. Academic research should be done, with ethics, with moral, and should not be. So there is a requirement of removing the conscious and unconscious human bias from the machine learning algorithms before we put them into use of our research. So this is some of the best practices or the generally accepted good practices that have been recommended by the researchers who have used AI ethically for use in research. So there has got to be some ground rules. I have got an image that I'd like to discuss. Is this screen visible by ground rules?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
What can you see on your screen? Is it 6 or 9? Yes. What is it?
Sir, it's
9
depend
even.
upon
That depends
sir,
upon
it's
the
depend
person who is
upon
seeing it.
from which angle I see.
Absolutely. So there are different perspectives. I mean, there are different perspectives, right? So there will be some. Likewise, in very different tools, etc. There has got to be some ground rules that educational institutions will have to set. To what extent we should use these tools? What are the ethical and moral obligations that we have to comply with when we are using these tools, and how do we incorporate into our curriculum? This is the objective of the slide, is to basically to initiate that discussion that some people may come back and say this is fine, others may say no. So we'll have to look at the merits of the case, and we'll have to look at because different institutions have different level of different committees which do clearing the progress reports of the researchers. So they should have certain rules related to the tools and the fact checks being done by the researchers while using those tools, etc., etc. So this was the objective of the slide. Now let us get back to some of the URLs. So the slide part I have concluded. Now one logical question that arises: what are the tools that we can use today? Isn't it? Anybody will have this question. So in order to answer that question, I just listed certain URLs. So allow me to stop my slides and get back to the URL itself. Okay. So I'll take these URLs one by one and then see. In fact, give me 1 minute. Is my browser visible now? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Let me just copy the. As far as the teaching, learning, and research is concerned, we have plenty of tools available. One of the very common problems that we had seen in the recent past, especially during Corona pandemic, when the classes became online, everything became online. One of the challenges that many teachers faced: how do we do exams online? Because there is a possibility of cheating, isn't it? You remember? So there are lots and lots of tools available today as we speak. And I'm not saying this is the best tool or this is the worst tool. I'm saying this is an example of the tool. You may find 10 more examples. So please note that I'm not saying that this is the only tool. I'm saying this is an example tool. Likewise, you will find many AI tools, AI powered tools, which are claiming to offer, solutions to the problems. For if we have an online exam that needs to be proctored, so how we can use online proctored exam? So we can do that, and we can create and we can utilize them. So there's something called DigiProcer, for example. So they have, certain, claiming that we offer this, we offer that. I'm not validating what they are offering is true or false. It needs to be checked. But there are plenty of tools available. We can always look at those tools in case if we have a problem of online exams, proctored exams required. So how do we take care that there's no impersonation, there is no misconduct, there is no unfair means in an online scenario? In a classroom scenario, we all know that there are regulators, we have norms and rules already established. But if we have to do it in an online world, how do we do it? So there are AI-based tools available which are claiming that we have a solution to your problems that needs to be examined on a case-to-case basis. There are plenty of them. Obviously, they are all business organizations, so they will end of the day, they will raise an invoice and say that, you know, here is going to be the cost. This is what we offer free, and beyond that, you'll have to pay. And so you can find plenty of them. I've just listed some of them. You can find lots and lots of them. So through AI, you can do online proctoring of exams. Here are some of the examples. You can find 10, 20 more examples. I'm not saying these are the only examples or this is the best example. I'm saying there are some examples which are claiming that they have a solution. Whether it is working meaningfully and effectively suits the needs, that needs to be checked in a real exam scenario in the institution. So that needs to be. So you can find that for such problems, we can have Think exam or so many others. So they have their own documentation and they have training videos, how we can control cheating, this, that. So many examples are there, right? So here are some AI-based tools available, and there are tools evolving. A lot of companies are doing investments and doing software development and offering tools. Most of them are being offered as a software as a service, which means cloud-based tools, etc., etc. So this is one part. Now let us get back to the research. So we have talked about the exams. Then another is assignments. We have plenty of times spent by the teachers in evaluating the assignment, etc. So how we can give the assignments through AI-based tool? Here is the example of a tool that helps us do assignment and it's being used in the higher education. So there are some 15, 20 tools listed here. This can be explored as an example. And obviously they are all business organizations, so they do have their own costing available. So there are some free versions available. To some extent, it can be used freely, etc., etc. So I am neither saying yes or nor no. I am saying it. You can explore if it solves your problem or if it helps. You can find many more such tools. So there are some tools, AI-based tools, which are being offered as software as a service and by different organizations, and people can use it for higher education, for enterprise learning, etc., etc. Now let us also look at some of the URLs as an example for the research part. Right. So I'm just trying to look at one of the URLs. What are the tools available for use by, right? So you can see here, there is a comparative study of research tools. What are the tools available in 2024, according to a particular blog? And here are these tools available. You can see here, there is a costing associated, pricing per month and so on and so forth in terms of dollar, etc. And they do have certain claims, and some of them are already being used by certain institutions. For example, we have Quillbot, right? So AI-based collaboration, multimedia, document editing, etc., etc. So you can see some of these as example, and they have their own documentation, their own claims that needs to be validated while we use them. We can always do a free version and trial version to experience whether it makes sense or not. And obviously, if it fits our pocket or if it fits our budget, then only we can proceed further. This is just one example of these tools. There are another category of tools. So just let me 1 minute to get back to, just give me 1 minute, please. So we do have something called Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what can you read?
Yes, sir.
What is visible on the screen? Can somebody read for me?
Top 10 open source artificial intelligence software.
Cool. Very good. Very good. So point that I want to emphasize here is this: open source. One of the mandates that we have in Computer Center is promotion of open source. So basically, open source softwares require also offer certain open source initiative also have artificial intelligence software, and here are some examples, right? So this also can be explored by us and see to what extent we can use them in various spheres and what are their use cases, USPs, etc. We can see. So plenty of them are available in open source domain also. For example, OpenNN is an open source AI software library for implementing neural networks and machine learning. So plenty of the open source initiatives are also available, which can be used by by the researchers and by those having interest and skill set in these domains. So you can find plenty of AI based tools available practically, and many more evolving day in and day out. But the fundamental and the basics still remain the same, that just like any amount of digital content cannot replace the textbooks that we have in the subject. They can always complement, they can help us to make it more meaningful, more efficient, but they can never, likewise AI can never replace human being. The word says artificial, it is not real, but it definitely can help us to be more productive, more efficient, and it should be used with caution and with certain ethics and integrity to fulfill the objectives of teaching, learning, and research. So this is what I had to say, and I've almost completed my budgeted quota of time. So if you have any questions, we can take up the questions. Fortunately, I'm able to finish the content in exactly the allotted time. So if you have any questions, please go ahead. See, there's one more. So let me just look at the question that somebody had typed in the chat box. So allow me. There are plenty of, so any statistical data set, there are plenty of the AI tools available. I would say most of the commercial tools which are available, they are to some extent they can be used free of cost, but they will charge. You can go and find out in the Google or using ChatGPT, plenty of tools, whether it is statistical. But as far as the open source tools are concerned, if you want to do some statistical analysis, there is something called have you heard of SPSS, which is actually a paid tool? We have got PSPP. We have got PSPP. So let me just based on the question, let me if my screen is my screen visible or not yet?
Yes, sir.
Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you can find here, there is actually an initiative of the ministry which is called the URL. Let me put the URL in the chat box. If you explore that, you will find plenty of open source resources. Give me 1 minute. See this site, you will find plenty of open source tools available which you can use legally free of cost by following the terms of open source. And you can do a lot of statistical analysis also, right?
Sir, your voice is buffering.
Hello, I'm saying I have put a URL in the chat box. You can see that site. This site I was opening also on my screen. You can see here, it has got plenty of tools, and this particular R is actually a statistical open source tool for statistical analysis. Apart from that, there are so many others listed on this particular site. You can see here. This is an initiative of Ministry of HRD or Ministry of Education, what is called now. Right? So this is as far as the tools available for analysis free of cost and without any financial implication. How we can do that? Now, another question in the chat is similarity index and plagiarism. Okay, so let me talk about that for a few minutes. See, most of these tools which are supposed to do flag checks, they work based on certain algorithm. Now, what these tools do, they will do an X-ray. They will run an algorithm and propose a similarity index. Thereafter, checking whether it is genuinely a plagiarism or not will have to be done. So there will be it has to be looked at by the author and the reviewer and the supervisor to decide whether it is genuinely a case of copy paste or so appropriate action has to be taken by going through the generated. Hello. Okay, so thanks. Hello. Thanks. Okay, one more question. Last, somebody said flag check tools. Basically, most of the software, there's something is called a small SEO engine. Most of the free tools, they can do some checks like Viper, etc. But they have limitation, which is basically you can do this much of check per day, etc., etc. Otherwise, most of the tools are paid tools. So Quillbolt is one. Then we have so many others. Most of the libraries of the institutions have this feature. You can check with the library what the library of your institution is offering. Okay. Thanks a lot. I'm hoping that we are able to take some key takeaways from the session which can help us do
Thank you, sir.
better, and we can start using some of those tools. Will be great if we are able to do something practically. Thanks a lot, and thank you for your patient hearing. Let's start using these tools to do things better, to be a better teacher, better mentor for our learners, better learner ourselves, and better researchers and research supervisors. Thanks for your time. All the best.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
सबसे चाय और पकौड़ी खाई था। हेलो
कहा ना वो लड़का अपना बैल है, वहां वही खड़ा होके ले रहा था, तो कम ज्यादा नहीं देखा। जा भाई
पहले खरीदारी करनी तो पहचान करनी। खास कुछ खावे नहीं के सुबह से मने नहीं करा नाश्तो नहीं करे देना और टाइम में आया तो खाई हम रोटी फिर बना मन नहीं खाता खाना भी बना सनो बताती होकर हमेशा ज्यादा हो जाता है सवा
ठीक है।
भाग्यान है हम कर के अब आती तो बढ़ा ही देती हो फिर कुछ नहीं बढ़ाने जितना तार है तार बल्कि ये खजाना होगा 750 होने लगा आती कैसे होगा 750 बाबा होने लगे पहले ही बताओ। अब बताए ना हम कि बाबू एक बार एक दिन हम ले रहे होगा तो पतो नहीं है सुन बोलते या कहीं तो गा दो दाई की ऐसी भाग गया है राती लाइट तो बढ़ा दी ऐसा ना है अरे चाय ऊपर लगा ज्यादा चाय यहाँ पर हमने लगा कहा तो कम मिल रहा तो हम तेनु खर्चा करत के पास चीजें ले लेती तो ज्यादा रहा खर्चा नहीं करती तो फिर मजा करती